I recently learned that through minimalism, people can start living more intentionally, become more productive, and even learn how to become absolute masters at every single thing they do. Okay, so not all that's true, but when it comes to me, I've recently found myself going down this slippery slope of constant improvement to my home office, and I'm not quite sure I like the path that I'm on. A new keyboard here, a new monitor there, another monitor, an iPad, a desk shelf, a new phone. I think you get the picture. It's not always bad to strive for improvement in a desk setup or workplace, but at the same time, I wanted to remind myself about trying to be a wannabe minimalist and be more intentional with my workspace. And that's why I've challenged myself over the next 7 days to ditch my badass office and start using this tiny desk setup in my bedroom as my everyday office. I was originally going to do 30 days, but I'm weak and fragile, so let's get to it. The setup that's simply simplistic and does everything I need. Now, for some context, in my regular setup, I have two sides to my massive desk. One side I use for gaming every day, and the other side is for my creative work. When it comes to my creative work, I do use Mac since I edit on Final Cut Pro, and you'll likely know that Mac is not good for gaming whatsoever, which is a problem I will need to overcome. And when it does come to gaming, well, it's a mix between console gaming and PC gaming, and since this setup is supposed to be a minimal productive setup, we're gonna have to make some sacrifices on the gaming side, which I'll get into. Either way, this entire setup needs to fit here, and hopefully it'll make me more productive. And one thing that makes this challenge a little bit more challenging is that I'm gonna be trying to keep this entire setup under 6 items total to really and actually make this setup actually minimal. Starting with the desk, I decided to use this IKEA Mickey desk, which has been collecting dust in my basement for some time. Simply put, this is an absolute tiny space, and the Mickey desk is an absolutely tiny desk. I know it's not the best quality desk, but it definitely does the job. Plus, it's only 89 bucks in Maple World, which is what I like to call Canada. It does have a drawer where I can store my bags of milk, which of course I do need to secure with a child lock. No, but really I do need this child lock. I have a toddler. She runs this house. Doing a quick check though, I'm clearly massive in regards to this desk. It almost feels like I'm sitting at my daughter's play table, but it'll still do the trick. So my first impressions on how to get this desk setup to work was crippling anxiety and anxiousness. Mainly since I gotta keep this whole desk setup under 6 items total, but if I'm being honest, I already knew I'd be using my Apple Studio display for the setup since it has everything I mentioned, including some of the best speakers I've ever heard coming out of a monitor.
I'm moist.
It has an awesome 5K resolution with HDR for my creative work, a minimal look and profile, as well as a comically awful webcam for such an expensive display, but nobody really wants to see this anyway, so that'd be sparing you. I don't consider it cheating against my 6-item budget since this is one single monitor and it's actually really good. So the powerhouse of the entire setup is definitely the Mac Mini with the M2 Pro chip. It's absolutely more powerful than anything I'll ever need, but it's tiny, powerful, and definitely does the job. This does hook directly up to my studio display using a Thunderbolt cable and simply plows through my daily workflow and tasks. From a creative standpoint, I'll be editing 4K footage with not too many effects or layers. Scrubbing through my timelines goes without any bumps or hitches, and this machine will absolutely last ages. The thing too is I still consider myself a beginner creator, so in terms of value to performance, the M2 Pro Mac Mini feels like an absolute home run. I do gotta mention quickly one of the limitations I find the most with the M2 Mac Mini is the storage. The M2 Pro variant does come with 512 gigs of storage, but I've actually had issues filling this up really quickly with applications, games, and projects. I did end up getting a dock for my M2 Mac Mini. It does let me add an SSD. This one's from a company called MinimalisTech, and it definitely does the job. And this little door connects with a magnet. It's really cute. This is a must-have if you're looking to expand storage, since I can never bring myself to pay the Apple markup on storage, which is absolutely atrocious. I've also been playing around a lot with my camera recently and learning photography, and I'm still trash. But the SD card slot on the front of the dock has always been helpful and easy for file transfers. An added bonus are having the Type-C ports on the front too. I really can't complain since it's more convenient. For me at least, this dock definitely deserves one of the 6 spots on my desk setup. I will say if this desk setup wasn't supposed to be so productivity oriented, I'd probably swap out the Mac for a PC, but I really dig the way macOS works and meshes everything together, especially with iOS and iPadOS. For me, it works a lot better. The downside to Mac is the lack of its ability to game or do other things like use the Windows version of Excel. I've previously jumped into some native games like Diablo 3 and Sims 4 and stuff, and the Mac does have an okay version of Excel, but if I'm using this one single setup, I've got to get creative. And by getting creative, that means turning the Mac Mini into a PC. Taking a look online, there's a whole lot of janky ways to get games and programs to work, but I did end up landing on Parallels, which actually gives me access to Windows. Now there's two reasons I need this for. Primarily, like I mentioned, is gaming, but I spend more time in the Windows version of Excel than I care to admit, and I definitely need that. Parallel allows me to take this beautiful PC and sort of make it work on my M2 Mac Mini for certain things at least. I didn't have a chance to jump into gaming too much this time around, mainly since I'm not sure what titles will work on Parallels, but I will be spending the time on that and will likely have a follow-up Parallels video. Is the whole thing perfect? No, not really, but it does allow me to use Windows on the same machine without getting another computer entirely. I'll link Parallels in the description since it is a really useful tool. And with any desk setup, of course, you do need a mouse and keyboard. I'm gonna cheat a little bit here, mainly because if I don't get a chair, and I really need a chair. But let me know if this is cheating or not. Either way, with such a sterile, minimal setup, I did end up stealing the keyboard from my office to use in this setup. A, since I'm addicted to how it sounds, and B, I've really grown to dig the colors of the keycaps. Adding some color to this setup keeps it interesting to me, and this keyboard is the NuFi Air 96, which is compact but still has a full numpad, which I use for absolutely riveting accounting stuff. And for my mouse, I'm using this Logitech G something something. It's a gaming mouse, it's comfy, it fits my hand really well. Since I'd rather vomit and cry than use a trackpad in Microsoft Excel, it's comfy, it's reliable, and does the job. So with only one item left in the desk setup, it's definitely gonna be the chair. And this one is the Autonomous Ergo Chair Pro, and I've had this one since March 2020, and it's held up extraordinarily well. The headrest is the low-key winner in every scenario, and I really dig the white and gray aesthetic. My head is so heavy and fat, so this is definitely a must-have. The adjustability is top-notch, and simply, this chair is my good old faithful. If this chair were human, I'd probably marry it at this point. Its a deep embrace even lets me curl into a ball and sob really hard on those difficult days. So anyways, that just about wraps up my desk setup with the M2 Mac Mini. We'll see how this setup fares over the next week. This setup is intentionally less, and I'm looking forward to seeing if I'm more productive, the same, or simply miserable. Again, I'm still mostly beginner at this whole creator thing, so this should be enough, and hopefully I can be equally, if not more productive. But let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a follow-up to my experience with this super tiny desk. I appreciate you guys watching till the end. Till next time.